So if you're thinking about buying a house somewhere around Macon or Warner Robins, Georgia, and you've done some research, you might notice that a lot of people from Macon are actually moving to Warner Robins. So why is that? Why are people in Macon moving to Warner Robins? They're not that far apart, and there's not really that big of a difference right now with Macon building up a lot of new construction areas on the outskirts. So let's get into finding out why people are moving from Macon to Warner Robins. Hey guys, I'm Chris, your real estate problem solver. I'm a realtor in the Warner Robins area, so if you are thinking about moving to Macon or Warner Robins, reach out to me and I can answer all your questions and make sure that you make the right decision for you and your family. So why are people moving to Warner Robins more than Macon? Well, the stats right now over the last couple of years is that Warner Robins has grown by about 8%. Right now, Warner Robins proper is got about 178,000 people, while Macon has been holding steady at their same numbers. So what's the difference? Are the houses for sale in Warner Robins cheaper than the ones in Macon? Well, actually, no, they're not. But there's one aspect about buying a house that not a lot of home buyers think about until after it's too late. Now, of course, the cost of living is pretty comparable because they're about 15 miles apart. Macon gas prices, Warner Robins gas prices are pretty much neck and neck. Cost of groceries is about the same. And the taxes for the value of the house is still running about comparable to each other. But the big difference that a lot of people don't think about, Warner Robins, yes, they do have a whole lot more of the newer houses, less than 20 years old, especially in Bonaire and Kathleen, since Bonaire and Kathleen took on the overflow of Warner Robins as it started growing in 1995 when the C5 came to Robins Air Force Base. So in reality, the houses around Warner Robins, Kathleen, and Bonaire are a little bit more expensive. Right now, the median price points for houses around Warner Robins, Kathleen, and Bonaire are averaging right around $300,000 to $315,000, while Macon houses for sale, the median price is somewhere around $248,000. Now that sounds like it's a whole lot cheaper and you might want to go to Macon. Well, there's a little caveat to that. The houses in Macon are a little bit older, they're a little bit more established. As a matter of fact, Macon is one of the oldest cities in Georgia, so they've got a lot of historical charm, they've got a lot of historical houses, and there have been houses built up ever since then, through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. And even now there's a lot of new construction houses that are built around Sardis Church Road, Hartley Bridge Road, and now there's new construction communities that are going in the city of Lizella, which is just west of Macon. But since the majority of the houses that are being sold are resale houses that are a little bit older, they're not as updated, so they're going to be a little bit cheaper. And that's where a lot of people don't think until after the closing date. While in Warner Robins, you're buying a house that is less than 20 years old, so they're definitely going to be more updated. The roof is going to be new, the air conditioner is going to be new. While in Macon, you're buying a house that's a little bit cheaper, but the roof might need to be changed out in 5 years. The air conditioner might be on its last leg. It may not have been treated in a while, and it may be due for some termite treatment. So while the price point for the house is a lot cheaper, the cost of maintaining that house over the next 5 years may end up making them pretty even. So you've got to account for what kind of maintenance the house is going to need over the next 5 or 10 years while you're living there, as to whether or not the price point that you're buying the house at is worth it. That's why when I'm working with somebody in Macon or Warner Robins to buy a house, I make sure that they see the cost of buying the house now versus the cost of loving that house over the next 5 or 10 years. Now, another popular question is, are the school systems better in Houston County versus Macon-Bibb County? Well, there's a yes and no to that. While the public school systems, if you go to niche.com, you'll see that they have better scores in Houston County for the public school system than Macon-Bibb County does. Macon-Bibb County also has a lot of phenomenal private schools that have very high marks. Now, of course, since it's a private school, you have to pay for it, and a lot of people can get scholarships and grants to cover the tuitions. At the same time, those people that can't are wanting to get into house and county schools. And that can be another contributor to why people are moving to Warner Robins over Macon. Now, the next comparable is, do you get a newer house in Warner Robins, Kathleen, and Bonaire versus Bibb County? And the answer is majorly yes. Warner Robins was established in 1941, and a lot of the houses in Warner Robins downtown area were built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But since the overflow going into Kathleen and Bonaire in around 1995, 2000, there has been a big housing boom in those areas. So you've got a lot of houses that are less than 20 years old, and they've still got over a dozen different builders building new construction houses. D.R. Horton Homes, Lennar Construction, Driggers, Trinity, and even Hodgson Homes are still building whole communities right now in Kathleen and Bonaire. So the probability of finding a new construction home in Houston County is inevitable. But there again, you're going to pay a higher price point for the newer houses. At the same time, you're going to have a little bit more time to breathe before the roof gets too old and needs to be replaced, before the air conditioner gets to the point where it needs to be replaced. So in essence, you're trading out a maintenance-free house now versus Macon, where you're buying a cheaper house now, which might need a little bit of maintenance sooner than later. And this is another place where I tell my buyers to pay attention to your budget. If you have good cash flow, but you don't have a lot of money right now, then cash flow might help you buy a nicer house and you don't have to come out of pocket for repairs nearly as soon. At the same time, if you've got a lot of money saved up, but you don't have a lot of cash flow, then buying a cheaper house and forking out the money to do the repairs yourself might be a better way to go. It just depends on your personal situation and what kind of style house that you're looking for. Now, another question that a lot of my clients are asking is, well, why would I live in Warner Robins if I'm working in Macon? As a matter of fact, I've got a client that just came in, bought a house in Warner Robins, even though he's working on a major project on the north side of Macon. And even though a lot of the houses and neighborhoods in Macon had the bigger lots, the more established landscaping, and have that beautiful homey feel, he preferred the suburban life and the smaller lots, less maintenance, because he didn't like yard maintenance. And Warner Robins is only about 15 miles from Macon, so it's not that big of a commute. He got the suburban life that he wanted, and he can still make it to work on time. So if you're in the healthcare industry, you've got Mercer University, you've got Navicent Health. There's a lot of big projects that are going on in Macon, like the new auditorium. And here shortly, they're getting ready to start a new power plant project. I believe it's a geothermal plant. So there's a lot of heavy industry jobs that are coming up in Macon. But since some people don't prefer the older established neighborhoods, they're living in Warner Robins and then just driving up north. Now, another question that a few of my clients ask me is, does Robins Air Force Base make Warner Robins a more stable housing market? Well, that's kind of a double-edged sword too, because while you've got Robins Air Force Base right here at Warner Robins, which is one of the biggest industrial employers in the state, Macon has in its own right multiple big corporations and companies and industries that are keeping Macon thriving. So in essence, Macon and Warner Robins are pretty stable in their own right. Now, with Robins Air Force Base having a lot of military and civilians PCSing to and from the area, that does create a lot of turnover and demand for houses and rental properties. So it makes a good investment area for rentals. Now, I will let you in on a little bit of secret right now. There has been an order come down that PCSing has been cut down from what it used to be. So there's not going to be nearly as much turnover in PCS season as there used to be. So that may have a little bit of an effect on the housing market, but not necessarily that much. So with that said, one question that I do ask my military families when they're doing a PCS to Robins Air Force Base is, when you buy your house in Warner Robins, Kathleen, or Bonaire, what are you planning on doing with that house in 3 to 5, 6 years when you do a military relocation to your next duty station? Because that is going to determine a lot about what kind of house to look for. As a matter of fact, I've got a client that just came in from Colorado, and they were specifically looking for a house that would rent well, so when they PCS to their next duty station, they can keep this house and rent it out. Of course, a lot of the majors and colonels are looking for the big 2 and 3 story $500,000 houses that are luxurious, and we've got plenty of them. At the same time, those bigger houses don't rent nearly as well as the smaller, more medium priced houses. So depending on whether you plan on selling the house when you PCS out of Robins or plan on keeping it as a rental is going to determine a lot about the house that you want to buy. And that might be another reason why you would pick one of Robins over Macon. Like I said, even though Macon has some beautiful new construction homes right at the border of the Bibb County, Houston County line, and they're only 10 or 15 minutes away from Robins Air Force Base, some people just don't prefer Macon. As a matter of fact, we have a rental right now that is on the market. It's been 2 months, but as soon as people find out that it has a Macon address, all of a sudden they're not interested. Even though it's 10 to 15 minutes away from Robins Air Force Base and it's a new construction home, they just aren't interested because it's in Macon. Now make sure to watch the rest of my videos to get a more well-rounded idea of what you're looking at in Middle Georgia so you can make a best decision for you and your family, and reach out to me and we'll come up with a game plan together to make your dreams come true in Middle Georgia. And I'll talk to you on the next video.